Hello. The topic of discussion for today is Colt's 1861 Navy by Uberti. We're going to talk about the pistol a bit, and then I'm going to load it up and show you firing the pistol. So enjoy the show. This is the 1861 Colt Navy by Uberti. This was the final iteration of the black powder Colt cap and ball series of the Navy that first began in 1851 with the 51 Navy. With the 51 Navy, by and large, being the largest sales volume of any iteration of Colt's Navy series. But the 1861 that I have in my hand here, this pistol came about in 1861 after Colt had produced its 1860 Army. And some of the characteristics from the 1860 Army are apparent in this Navy series. You'll see that, as with all of the Colt Navy series, the cylinder it was originally roll stamped, but is engraved with the fighting ships scene. The fighting ships also made it onto the 1860 Army. There's the Colt patent. Again, this pistol is by Uberti. Uberti and Pieta both make really good replicas. I kind of gravitate a little more towards Uberti. I found this pistol to be very high quality. I've had zero issues with it. It is crisp, locks up really clean, has a great trigger. I don't have any complaints with this pistol in comparison to Pieta's, which I've had to clean up a bit. You'll notice that this 61 Navy has a color case hardened steel frame. In a departure from the 51 Navy and the 1860 Army, this 61 Navy has a steel trigger guard versus the brass that you see on a lot of them. The 61 Navy also has the same barrel profile as the 61 Army. The earlier iterations of the Navy actually had an octagonal barrel with a simple hinge mechanism for the loading lever. And that stayed with the 1851 Navy all the way up until 1861 when this was produced. Aesthetically, it is different. The rounded barrel was a little cheaper to manufacture, I believe, than the octagonal barrel was at this point. Metals had improved, and I believe that may have been somewhat a cost-saving mechanism. The loading lever is changed somewhat from the 51 Navy, as you may be aware. In the same manner that the 1860 Army was, this loading lever has a rack and pinion design. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's a lot stronger than the 51 Navies, but it is different, and Colt considered that an improvement. As with all of the Colt open top revolvers, the rear sight is a notch in the hammer. So there's your rear sight, there's your front sight, and there's your sight picture. A lot of cap and ball revolvers typically shoot a little high. I found this one to be pretty accurate though, and at 15 to 20 yards, I can hit Coke cans. You'll notice these additional screws that stick out a little bit here. These are on either side of the frame. These little flathead screws. The purpose of this is for a Colt shoulder stock attachment, which is actually came with some Colts, I believe. I don't have one, but I could certainly, Uberti probably makes one that would fit this pistol. The shoulder stock attachment would give, if you were a cavalryman or on horseback, it'd give you a steadier shot, a little steadier aim, because you could pull it against your shoulder just like a carbine or a shotgun or whatever, a long gun you might have. These did make it into the field at the time of the Civil War. However, Colt's factory had a really big fire during the Civil War. Roundabout's the time frame of, I really should have looked that up before, but I believe 1863. Might have been middle to late 1862. And that did hurt the supply of Colt pistols, which were the predominant choice of the Army back then and were found on both sides, north and south. When that happened, it gave Remington a little bit of an edge to start supplying some Remington new model armies into the game. A little bit of a break for them. I like the way Uberti hides most of their proofing marks. Pieta just prints them right across the barrel, but Uberti does hide those a bit. They are on the bottom of the barrel, so the loading lever hides them. Well, they're upside down, but you see what I mean. That's a nice little thing aesthetically, just to keep them out of view. All right, let's load up a few shots. All right, for a loading procedure today, since I'm inside at the bench, I believe I'll just go ahead and disassemble the pistol. I'm going to use my loading press here to load my rounds. So I'm going to go ahead, we're going to pop out the wedge. My wedge on this one is pretty loose. It is no problem at all just to thumb press it and pop it right out. We've got our pistol already on half cock, and I'm going to use the loading lever against the bottom of the cylinder just to kind of press it on off. Looks like everything's clean and a little bit of oil in there. That's good. All right, so I'm gonna stick that on the press. I'm going to shoot a pretty mild charge because I'm just shooting in my yard today, and I don't want to waste powder, and I'm not shooting at distance or anything like that. Really, I'm just shooting more as a demonstration. So I've got 20 grains here, black powder. I'm going to pour that in. All right, so you see there, we've got our 20 grains in there. I'm going to use a felt wad for the 36. I'm going to stick a ball down on top of that felt wad. These are size 0.375. I want to get this final step in the loading process on film because there are so many videos on YouTube. I know that most of you folks that are watching this already know how to load these, and pretty much you know what's going on, but I wanted to include this step just in case this is your first exposure to a black powder cap and ball revolver, just so that we don't miss anything. So far I've shown everything involved in the process, but you see I've left the cylinder empty. I have not capped this cylinder, okay? Keep that in mind for safety. You don't cap these until you are ready to run. So that way you don't have any accidental discharges while you're working here. But it's a 6-shooter. I've got 5 loaded. That's called a cowboy load because on the way out to shoot, I'm going to have this empty cylinder under the hammer, okay? Because I'll be capped at that point. I'm going to lube these cylinders just as an extra little precaution. I don't think we'll get a chain fire. The balls fit pretty tight, but I didn't get a distinctive shaving of lead off of all of them, so just extra precaution. I've got this stuff here that I'm going to use. A lot of times I use a mixture of Crisco and beeswax. Ta-da! Now it's open. Okay. All right. Got me a little ice cream scooper here, and I'm just going to dip it in here, and we're going to smear some lube on these cylinders, folks. I'm going to try to get my head out of the camera for a minute here where I can see what's going on, but If any of you guys have ever heard of this pistol patch stuff before, let me know, because way back when I got my first cap and ball revolver, which was actually in the 90s, the gun store had this stuff on hand. And that was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. I don't know if they make this stuff anymore, but one thing I will say, this stuff's a little stickier than I'd like. It's a little messier. However, this does good in any temperature, I've found. It doesn't tend to melt and fall out in hot weather, and it's not really, really hard. As you can see, it's, you know, temperature indoors here at my house is probably about 69 to 70 degrees. Stays just about right. All right, oop, there we go. If I missed some of that, I do apologize, but I am not going to do it again. Now we're ready for capping. And we're going to cap outdoors, by the way. I'm not going to cap in the house. There's no reason to. Just a little extra safety thing. Make sure we don't have any unwanted things that are going to cause issues in our otherwise fun day. The target for today is a cardboard box. And the distance is going to be really close. Oh, about 15 feet or so. All right, guys. Let's see if I can get in camera. We're going to cap now. We're out here on the range. Everything's safe. And what we're going to do is, right there's my empty. So I'm going to skip this one. I have snail capper. These work pretty good with Colts. I haven't used it before, and if I start dropping caps all over the ground, that's why. So let's see if we can get one out here. There. Ooh, yikes. It didn't come out right, guys. It came out sideways. I gave up on the snail capper. I've just got my Remington number 10s, and I'm capping them the good old way with my thumb, which is usually the way I load these. I don't often use a capper. I just tried to be fancy and show you guys how to use one, and I failed, so I'm using my thumb. Now the thumb method, sometimes you're gonna drop one. I mean, that's life, right? I just dropped one now. But don't lose them. Keep your eye on the game there. Don't let them get away from you. These number 10s fit nice and snug on this Uberti 1861 Navy. All right, so what we're going to do now is rotate this cylinder around to my empty. There. Now we've got a safe firearm, but it's fully loaded, capped, and ready to go. There's the 5 shots. I mean, it's a good group, but I'm mighty close. But these pistols are made for close range, so I mean, it's a mixed bag, but a lot of gunfights would have been not much further than that. Hey guys, one thing you might have noticed while I was firing just a moment ago, after I shot my 5 rounds, I rotated the cylinder. What I was doing was checking for spent caps. Those caps, when the cylinder goes off, will split and fragment, make a mess, and they can jam you up. Those number 10 Remingtons did a great job, though. They did fragment a little, but none of them made it into the action. Actually, most of them stayed split, but still hanging on the nipple. I think 3 of them were that way. So I rotated the cylinder, and the cylinder rotated just fine, and I just picked them off and let them fall. So that's just one of the extra pleasures of black powder cap and ball shooting, is sometimes you get cap jams. So I'm going to try to keep this as short as possible. I'm getting ready to clean now. I've got the 61 Navy disassembled here on the bench. I have removed the percussion cones with my wrench here. I'm going to clean everything up real good and put her up. What I use predominantly to clean with, to get the majority of the fouling off, is warm soapy water. Warm soapy water does a great job of breaking down the fouling, loosening the fouling, and also neutralizing a little bit the salts that are in that powder, which promote corrosion and rust. You always got to clean these, guys. If this is your first exposure, you can't let them sit dirty. You got to clean them. That was only 5 shots, but it's a mess. So I'm going to get started. Have a great day. Hope you enjoyed the video.